folks just kind of joining in and following these ICE agents in their vehicles, to the fact that they had to get an armored vehicle out here.
Everybody has a right to live here. This is not right. There's people coming over from other countries because they're fighting wars. It's not fair.
America, what I'm about to show you perfectly captures the insanity of liberal priorities in New York City. Federal agents conducted immigration enforcement operations, and within hours, angry white liberals, community activists, and some seriously uneducated people swarmed the streets to protect people who broke our immigration law to get here. But here's what's gonna make your blood boil. These same people who organize instantly to defend illegal immigrants are nowhere to be found when crime is raging through neighborhoods, when drugs are infesting communities, or when law-abiding citizens are suffering from the consequences of failed policies. This is the liberal hive mind in action, and it's destroying cities like New York. Welcome to New York, the concrete jungle where dreams are made of.
We have just walked from Canal Street to the ICE headquarters here in Foley Square. There was a spontaneous protest that erupted with New Yorkers after they saw ICE rounding up people on Canal Street.
What is up, guys? Tyson De La Cruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. This story is the perfect example of how liberals have completely lost their minds. They'll move heaven and earth to protect people who are here illegally, but won't lift a darn finger to help law-abiding citizens who are suffering the consequences of their failed policies. Let me break down what happened in Manhattan, because this wasn't some random sweep. This was federal law enforcement doing exactly what they're supposed to do: enforce immigration law and remove people who are here, get this, guys, illegally.
Dozens of ICE agents swarm Canal Street, targeting individuals trying to make a living.
Breaking news at 8, tense moments on Canal Street, where federal agents carried out an investigation targeting street vendors, and the people detained were brought to Federal Plaza. Good evening, I'm Dick Brennan. We begin with that major federal enforcement on Canal Street this afternoon. ICE agents, along with the FBI, DEA, and ATF, conducted raids on people selling counterfeit goods along the busy street.
ICE agents working with the FBI, DEA, and ATF conducted coordinated operations targeting people who are here in the country illegally. The media tries to spin this as targeting people trying to make an honest living, but these are people who broke federal immigration law to get here in the first place.
Federal agents started a crackdown on illegal vendors in Chinatown.
And the raid by the federal agents and the vendors who are regularly on the streets of New York, leading to a rather tense situation.
The operation led to what media calls a tense situation, but the only reason it was tense is because liberal activists showed up to obstruct federal law enforcement. When you're here legally, ICE operations aren't tense. They're routine law enforcement that doesn't affect you.
Normally, Canal Street is full of street vendors selling all sorts of fake designer goods, but it looks like today was not about the merchandise, but about the people operating those street sales.
This operation focused on the people running these operations, those individuals vending bacon-wrapped hot dogs and breakfast burritos, people who are here illegally and have been operating with impunity in New York City because of sanctuary policies that protect criminals over citizens. Now here's where the story gets absolutely insane. Within hours of this operation, you guessed it, guys, hundreds of angry white liberals and community activists materialized out of nowhere to protest federal law enforcement doing their job.
Following those very heavily armed officers right here to the federal building, and this is what you have seen now, the NYPD blocking off the entrance to the federal building after they took everyone inside just minutes ago. There were several scuffles that broke out with protesters and federal agents.
These protesters followed federal agents to the federal building and got into physical scuffles with law enforcement. Think about how backwards this is. They're attacking federal agents for enforcing immigration law, but they're defending people who broke federal law to get here.
This is one of the ICE vehicles here. They were walking back to their cars. Now, one of the agents you can see just getting out of the car, trying to get a hold of one of the other ones. People are pounding on the the windows of the car.
Look at this footage. Protesters pounding on ICE vehicle windows, blocking traffic, and physically preventing federal agents from doing their job. This isn't peaceful protests. This is obstruction of justice to protect people who are breaking immigration law.
They're not letting them leave. So it's unclear whether people are even inside the vehicle aside from these agents, but these women aren't letting them go anywhere.
These women, mostly angry white liberals who are dusty, are literally preventing federal agents from leaving. When you physically prevent law enforcement from doing their job, you are not a peaceful protester. You are an accomplice to criminal activity. Let's talk about the community activists who showed up to defend people who broke immigration law, because their statements perfectly capture the liberal mindset that's destroying New York City.
Murad Awadawa is part of the New York Immigration Coalition, and what have you witnessed here today?
What we've seen is that the Department of Homeland Security, ICE, HSI, ERO, and other federal law enforcement agents have been targeting street vendors who are simply trying to make a living.
Murad Awadawa from the New York Immigration Coalition claimed that federal agents were targeting people simply trying to make a living. But these aren't people with legal status trying to make an honest living. These are people who broke immigration law and are now facing the consequences, plain and simple.
And ordinary New Yorkers stood up to fight back against what we're seeing happen in our streets here in New York City, which is just completely and utterly horrifying, to be honest with you.
But what's really horrifying is that the community activists thinking enforcing immigration law is worse than allowing people who broke federal law to operate with impunity.
Have you ever seen 50 to 100 federal agents mobbing a street and beating up people on the street? Because that's exactly what just happened. They were beating up U.S. citizens.
But the video evidence shows agents conducting professional law enforcement operations while being attacked by protesters. This is the classic liberal tactic. Accuse law enforcement of violence while ignoring the actual violence from the protesters. The most revealing part of this whole incident is when activists started calling federal law enforcement fascist for enforcing immigration law.
This is supposed to be a democracy. We're supposed to be a nation of rule and law. And what we're ending up seeing is fascist tactics and authoritarian tactics being used in cities like New York right now.
Murad said we're supposed to be a nation of rule and order while simultaneously defending people who broke immigration law. The cognitive dissonance is absolutely incredible here. They claim to support the rule of law while attacking law enforcement for enforcing the law.
The situation quickly got heated when bystanders joined in and started pushing back on the officers. There was shoving, there was cursing. I saw a woman banging on an official car, then thrown to the ground and taken into custody.
That is not peaceful protests. That's assault on federal agents. But somehow the activists want you to believe that the agents are the problem, not the people attacking them.
People are upset, obviously, but things escalate quickly, and it's unclear whether anyone was actually arrested. It was undocumented here. It just seems to be the protesters at this point.
Here's what really gets me about this whole situation. Where was this same energy when law-abiding citizens are suffering from the consequences of liberal policies?
Everybody has a right to live here. This is not right. There's people coming over from other countries because they're fighting wars. It's not fair.
But where is that same energy when crime is raging through New York City neighborhoods? Where is this same energy when drugs are infesting communities and destroying families? These same activists can organize hundreds of protesters within hours to defend people who broke immigration law are nowhere to be found when violent crime is destroying neighborhoods. Drugs are killing Americans and destroying communities. Citizens are getting attacked, robbed, and murdered. Legal immigrants are waiting years for their applications to be processed. American workers are losing their jobs to illegal labor. Taxpayers are funding services for people who aren't supposed to be here.
The spontaneous protest occurred because ordinary New Yorkers see other New Yorkers being hurt and vilified by these individuals. Of course, anyone who sees someone being wrongfully targeted is going to take some form of action.
But these people weren't wrongfully targeted, homie. They were targeted because they broke federal immigration law. Let's talk about the real victims in this situation: law-abiding citizens and legal immigrants who are being ignored while liberals rush to defend people who broke immigration law.
ICE raids on Canal Street leading to multiple people being taken into custody.
Yeah, this has been an ongoing political story as well. New York politicians are responding already.
New York politicians immediately responded to defend people who are here illegally, but where's their response when citizens are victimized by crime? Where's the outrage when drugs are destroying communities? Where's their concern for legal immigrants who follow the rules?
Canal Street is calm right now. The sidewalks empty of any street vendors after today's chaotic arrests. We are waiting to learn how many were taken into custody.
This is what happens when you actually enforce the law. Illegal activity stops, law-abiding citizens feel safer in their communities, but liberals want us to believe that enforcing immigration law is somehow wrong. What we witnessed in Manhattan is the liberal hive mind in action, a coordinated response that instantly mobilizes to protect people who broke immigration law while ignoring the suffering law-abiding citizens.
Those vehicles were able to make it out of there. That was a challenge when we covered all of this in Los Angeles at the facilities where the vehicles were trying to pull away, where people would stand in front of the vehicles.
This same exact pattern is happening in cities across the country. Wherever ICE tries to enforce immigration law, the liberal hive mind activates to obstruct justice. They have a coordinated network that can mobilize protesters faster than emergency services can respond to crimes. Murad complained about law enforcement and said the federal government should invest in supports that New Yorkers need. But the support that New Yorkers need is immigration law enforcement, crime reduction, and stopping the flow of drugs, not more taxpayer-funded programs for people who are here illegally. The liberal hive mind operates on a simple principle. People who broke immigration law deserve protection. Law enforcement deserves attack, and law-abiding citizens deserve nothing. America, what happened in Manhattan perfectly captures everything wrong with liberal priorities in New York City and cities across the country. They'll move heaven and earth to protect people who broke immigration law to get here, but they won't lift a finger to help citizens who are suffering from crime, drugs, and failed policies. The instant mobilization of hundreds of protesters to defend people who are here illegally shows you how organized and coordinated the liberal resistance to law enforcement really is. These aren't spontaneous community responses. These are coordinated efforts to obstruct federal law enforcement and protect people who broke immigration law. But where is this same energy for tax-paying citizens? Where is this same energy when law-abiding citizens are suffering from the consequences of sanctuary policies that protect criminals over citizens? It doesn't exist because the liberal hive mind only cares about protecting people who support their political agenda, regardless of whether they're here legally or follow the law. The real victims of this story are the law-abiding citizens and legal immigrants who follow the rules, pay taxes, and wait their turn, only to watch people who broke immigration law get priority treatment and protection from the very people who are supposed to serve them. This is what happens when you elect people who care more about virtue signaling than public safety, more about protecting people who broke immigration law than protecting citizens. The liberal hive mind is a cancer on American cities. And until we start electing people who start prioritizing law-abiding citizens over people who broke immigration law, this insanity will continue to destroy our communities. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.